Hello, my dear students. Today we are going to continue with the novel Around the World in 80 Days. Last time we had studied chapter number 34. Today we will study chapter number 35. Okay, in which Phileas Fogg does not have to repeat his orders to Passepartout twice. What happens here is the dwellers, meaning the people staying in Savile Row, would have been surprised the next day if they had been told that Phileas Fogg had returned home. Everybody would have been surprised that Fogg had completed his bet and he is back home. But then, till now, the doors and windows are still closed. Okay, so Passepartout has arrived at the station, London station, and he has given instructions to Passepartout to purchase some provisions. And meanwhile, he has quietly gone to his domicile meaning his home. He bore his misfortune with habitual tranquility. If you observe, Mr. Fogg is always a quiet and calm person. Okay, however ruined he was in complete distress, but then he maintains complete calmness, all because of the blunder of the detective, Mr. Fix. He says that he has traveled hundreds of kilometers and overcome so many obstacles and dangers, and when something good is going to happen at the end, at the end moment, the unwanted or the unforeseen circumstances arise and it is ruined. That is what happened. So he was about to win the bet and he has lost it. So now he is left only with a few pounds, only some amount of money is left with him, and the remaining amount, that is the 20,000 pounds, is deposited at Barings, and that money will be given to his friends at the Reform Club. So he would have won the bet and that would have made him rich, but then now he has lost the wager. And then finally they are coming back to the room. One room is going to be given to Oda, and but then Oda is really very sad about her protector's misfortune. He had protected her. He has, that we shall see further. But then because he has undergone a bad experience and he has lost everything, Passepartout is a little scared about the desperate expedient of a suicide, that he might not resort to or take some drastic step of a suicide. So he is keeping a very eye upon his master, and but then he hides the fact that he is keeping an eye on his master. When he reaches the house, he finds a bill from the gas company. Immediately he goes up and he extinguishes the gas burner. The gas burner has been lit, or it has been burning for 80 days, and now a huge bill has come, and there is nothing left for Mr. Fogg to pay now. Then it's night time and they are unable to sleep. Neither Mr. Fogg nor Auda nor Passepartout, they cannot sleep at all. And Passepartout is like a watchful dog, keeping an eye on his master that he should not take any drastic step. Next morning, he calls up Passepartout, and then he tells that make arrangements for Auda's breakfast and everything. And then Passepartout has no other choice but to obey his master. He looked at his imperturbable master. He looks at the master and he sees that still he has no anger on his face. He looks absolutely calm, and he somewhere deep down feels that he is responsible for the ill fate of his master. And then he goes on to his master and he says, "My master, Mr. Fogg, why do you not curse me? It was my fault." He is having that guilt feeling. Had he openly told about Mr. Fix's the detective's intentions, he would have saved him from that disaster. But then Mr. Fogg says, "See, I don't blame anybody." Okay, very very calmness. Then Passepartout goes to Auda and he says, "Madam, I can do nothing myself, nothing. I have no influence over my master." So he feels that she is the person who can make or console his master. Then she says, what influence could I have? What can I say or what can I do? Mr. Fogg is influenced by no one. Okay, nobody can, influence him. Has he ever understood my gratitude? She owes him some gratitude. Okay, because he had saved her. That also he doesn't understand. So then she says, my friend, he must not be left alone any instant. He should not be left alone. They both are scared. You say he's going to speak with me this evening? We're supposed to talk in this evening. Okay, then he says, yes, madam, probably to arrange for your protection and comfort in England. This is what she doesn't belong to England. She's come from somewhere. Okay, and he's under the protection of Mr. Fogg. Throughout this day, that is Sunday, they feel it is Sunday, the house in Savile Row was as if uninhabited. Nobody has entered. It seemed like that. The first time he had lived in that house, did not set out for his club. It was his routine to go to Reform Club every day. Now it is 7:30. And why should he present himself at the Reform? Now what is left? He has already lost the bet. He should have been there on Saturday. Now it's Sunday. As Phileas Fogg had not appeared in the saloon on the evening before. He should have gone to the saloon before on Saturday 21st of December at a quarter before 9. 8:45 he should have reached there. And now he thinks it's not necessary to go to the Reform Club even, because now the check which was given or which was handed over to his friends, it's going to be transferred anyways. He has lost the bet. Now Mr. Fogg, so he says there's no point in going out. So he remained at home. He shut himself in his room, and Passepartout is like in complete tension, going up and down the stairs, and he's listening, quietly, keeping his ears at the door, looking through the keyhole. Okay, and he observes that Mr. Fogg is in no anger. And then inside he's feeling alone, and he wants to go and talk to Auda. So he goes to Auda's room, knocks up, and he looked ruefully at the young woman. Ruefully meaning with great sorrow and regret. He looks up at Auda, and he goes and sits right in front of her, unable to speak anything for some time. And then after several minutes he tries to speak up, and he says, Madam, will you pardon me for bringing you to England? He feels that he has done a great mistake of bringing her to England. Then she speaks up. He says, I, Mr. Fogg. Then again he disrupts her, and she says, interrupts her and says, let me finish. So he said, I decided to bring you from that country because he felt that it was quite unsafe for her. But then I was rich then. Now he has lost all his fortune in that bet, and now I'm ruined. That's what he says. She says, I know, Mr. Fogg, and I ask you in my return, will you forgive me for following you or having followed you, delayed you and thus contributed. So she feels she is responsible for his ruin. Again he continues, Madam, you could not have remained in India, and your safety would not be assured by, and your safety definitely I had to bring you here because your prosecutors, means the lawyers there, she has done something wrong maybe. They were trying to prove her guilty, so it was the best to bring her from India to England. And yes, madam, but circumstances have been against me, so things have not been the way he had planned, and so he says, circumstances have gone against me, what can I do? But I beg to place the little I have left at your service. I give you a room and keep you safe as far as according to my whatever way possible. But what will become of you? But what about you? You have protected me, Auda says. But what about you? He says, but how do you look upon the fates which awaits you? How do you know? He says, I have need of nothing. See, I'm not worried about anything. I have nothing to be worried of. And she says, how do you know what fate, owes you, or what is next? What next is going to happen? How do you know that? I'm in the habit of doing the way it comes. He takes it the way he comes. And then he says, want. Why do you say, I don't want anything? But why don't you think of those people who really care for you and want you? Hey, should not overtake a man like you, your friends. He says, I have no friends. And about your relatives, so I have no relatives at all. So she says, I pity you then, Mr. Fogg, for solitude. Loneliness is a very terrible thing. It can lead you to depression, right? So it's a very bad thing, she says. Mr. Fogg said, rising, seizing his hand, do you wish at once a kinswoman and a friend? Kinswoman is a woman who is a person, who is connected by blood relation. Okay, will you have me as your wife? Okay, see me as your blood relation, just like a wife. Will you see me like your wife? So Mr. Fogg is just simply surprised, and he gets up. There was an unwanted light, unwanted meaning an unusual light in his eyes. And he looked up straight into her eyes and looked up at her face, and he could see the sincerity, the rectitude meaning the moral correctness. There was nothing wrong. She was absolutely right and sincere, a noble woman. And he simply shut his eyes, unable to say anything, and then it came out. He poured out his heart and he said, I love you, and I'm entirely yours. Ah, cried Ada, pressing his hand to her heart. And then Passepartout understood everything, that things have gone very pretty well between the two. And Mr. Fogg asked him if it was not too late to notify the Reverend Samuel Wilson of Marylebone parish that evening. So he wants to go and talk to the parish priest regarding their marriage. And Passepartout gave a pleasant smile and says, it's never too late. It was 8:30 by then. And then tomorrow, so let's fix for tomorrow. That's what tomorrow is going to be Monday. He says, yes, tomorrow, Monday, she replied. And Passepartout has gone running away to reach out to the parish priest. I hope you must have understood till here. Thank you.